Welcome to Explosive Enterprises, and we've been using a couple of Tokyo Marui Saigas basically non-stop since their release last year. Unsurprisingly, there is now a fair bit of aftermarket support plus a few issues that have come up since our initial review, so it's time for an update. First off, the bottom line up front is that on the whole these guns have been solid. At last count, we have 6 in our local groups and only 1 has experienced a significant failure. Even that was after around 10,000 cycles and fixable without much trouble. Before we get into that, I want to make a small correction. In our initial review, we said that the stop on empty works by elevating this lever to block the output valve. This is not correct. The lever actually works by pushing the valve knocker upwards so that it misses the lever completely. If there's enough friction on the valve knocker, it may not lift high enough and start sporadically failing to stop on empty, but a thorough cleaning will fix that just fine. Now for that significant failure I mentioned, my Saiga broke its trigger, freeing the disconnector spring and then compromising the fire control. We've seen a couple people online have the same problem, always caused by the full auto conversion. Basically, full auto is accomplished by the selector blocking the disconnector, so in this setting pulling hard on the trigger rams the back of the trigger into the disconnector. This design is fine, it just means that when the gun is set to full auto, it may crack if you really mash on the trigger like a gorilla. Obviously I would never do such a thing, so it's strange that mine broke. Stop looking at me like that. Well, to fix it, we drilled a hole to run a nail through, used a slightly cut down spring from a ballpoint pen as a replacement disconnector spring, and filled in the gaps with epoxy, which I've left unpainted for now to make it easy to see. Surprisingly, aftermarket has not yet provided steel trigger parts, but will probably upgrade whenever those show up. And to be clear, we have not seen this issue occur on a semi-only Saiga. The full auto is a fun gimmick, but it's just a gimmick. Don't fly too close to the sun and you shouldn't have any problems. Next, after a few thousand cycles, we started noticing that the bolt would sometimes fail to return to battery with the gun pointed upwards. This was due to the recoil springs taking a set from wear, losing their original strength. While higher strength recoil springs are now readily available, but also the front recoil spring can be simply replaced with a high kappa recoil spring, in this case 130%, and that provides just a modest increase in tension to ensure consistent cycling. A problem that is not easily solved, though, is breakage of the tri-nozzle. In the overwhelming majority of cases, this has been associated with the use of an HPA adapter and particularly drum magazines. Tokyo Marui put a lot of R&D into the feed system on their magazines, and conventional AEG magazines or drums often fail to keep up with the feed rate of the action. If a BB doesn't feed quickly enough and the tri-nozzle catches just the edge of it, it may break the tri-nozzle, and finding OEM replacements has been a challenge. There are aluminum replacements now, but we've heard people have problems with them, so we would strongly suggest sticking with Marui's mags and all OEM parts. If you absolutely must use an HPA adapter, at least go with a reputable company like AirTac. Personally, I built an HPA drum but didn't find the extra weight and tether to be worth it, even before the problems were recognized, so I'm back to mags. And on the subject of the tri-nozzle, when working on the gun for the initial review, I accidentally damaged one of the return springs, and it seems over time it started to bend further until it got to the point where it was interfering with the tri-nozzle return and the gun started occasionally only feeding and firing 2 BBs rather than 3. I was able to substitute in a spring taken from a ballpoint pen, and that restored proper function. None of the other guns in our group have had this issue. Next, in very hot weather and when using propane, we've encountered light striking once the magazine reaches about 100 Fahrenheit or 38 Celsius, which when it's warm outside can occur quite quickly in direct sunlight. Obviously, the best solution is to avoid letting mags get that warm when using propane, so keep them covered when not in play. But if it is an issue and you don't want to use duster gas, it's possible to add 1 or 2 small shims to the hammer spring, each 6mm in diameter and 2mm long, which we'll link in the description. This extends the usable temperature a bit and reduces the risk of light striking in hot weather, but keep in mind that it's forcing the gun to work at much higher pressure than it was designed for, so do so at your own risk. Moving on, I stripped the screw that holds on the sight rib and ended up just fabricating some simple irons to replace it. Don't install and remove and install and remove and install and remove and then cross thread, and you won't run into this. While not a breakage per se, twice I've had a BB get caught in the nozzle inlet, so it's best to ensure the mag well is held vertically when removing a mag just to ensure any excess BBs drop free. And lastly, some people have had trouble properly filling the Saiga magazines, and it seems the two-way valves TM uses can be picky about propane adapters. Make sure to align the nozzle to the valve, not the base plate, and keep filling until you see liquid spill out. If this doesn't get enough gas to clear 3 mags worth of BBs at room temperature, try a different propane adapter. We can confirm that Mad Bull and Airsoft Innovations ones work well. And that's it. Those are all the problems we've seen online or personally encountered with the TM Saiga. Sometimes I wonder if these follow-up videos make the guns sound bad because we always run into some sort of problem, but frankly this is excellent by the abysmally low standards of airsoft guns, especially given how much we've used them. That trigger breakage on one gun has been the only showstopper issue for us out of 6 guns and could be construed as self-inflicted, and otherwise the performance has been consistent with our initial review. The spread is tight enough to make this function as essentially a rifle that happens to fire 3 BBs at once, with some adjustability by varying the twist of the inner barrels. And while the hop is fixed, .32 gram BBs have worked fine on propane at any temperature we've dried down to freezing. With a fairly light trigger pull and the 3 BBs per shot, it can out-spam anything locked to semi-auto, putting a lot of plastic downrange when time is a factor.
Oh, you got it.
It has a decent bit of recoil and a distinctive chugging report that make it fun to shoot, and it works down to sub-freezing and uses magazines that are convenient to regas and reload. Put simply, the gun is good.
The gun is good.
The gun is good!
Now it's gotten even better with the eagerly anticipated release of long magazines. These are styled after the Ishmash Factory 8-round magazines, where the original mags are modeled off of 5-rounders. But where the original mags hold 45 BBs for 15 shots, the long mags hold 90 BBs for 30 shots. Despite doubling in BB capacity, they actually only weigh about 500 grams, where the short mags weigh 400 grams, and the gas capacity seems to have increased proportionally to the BB capacity, holding about 25 grams of gas, so they still get about 3 full mags out at room temperature. Anyways, in our initial review, we said that while the short mags are only 15 shots, that low capacity goes further than you might expect, since each one is a triple tap more likely to connect with the target. Well, with the long mags, the number of shots per reload is the same as a standard rifle magazine, and they're each a triple tap. I even find them easier to load into the gun, probably because the increased length allows me to get better grip for leverage. And with twice as many BBs per mag, I can carry fewer mags and still have more ammo. There's just one downside to the long mags, and unsurprisingly, it's that they're, well, long. The other 2 dimensions are the same as the short mags, so they'll still fit in universal pouches like tacos with some fiddling, or in open-top pouches intended for HK417 mags like the Unobtainium Gear STMR placard, but they do feel very tall extending up from a belt, and if you prefer flap pouches, finding suitable ones can be a challenge. There are belt pouches intended for Saiga mags that we're told work well. 2 mags can fit side by side in a USGI SAW pouch, or a Nixie Works rifle magazine pouch can hold 1 and still close, or 2 if the Velcro is extended. Personally, I've been getting along with 3 mags in elastic on a plate carrier or chest rig, a single taco speed reload on my belt, and 1 more in the gun. This setup of 5 magazines gives me 150 shots or 450 BBs, nearly 50% more ammo than the previous 6+1 of the short mags and actually weighing a little less. In fact, when I played with 5 short mags, I rarely felt like I had any ammo problems, and with the long mags, I think I'd be fine with just 3 total. Honestly, this is such an upgrade that I can't see myself using the short mags again, and I wish Marui had started with the long mags to begin with. I'm struggling to think of a good use case for the short mags, and all I can come up with is either really specific gear requirements or to reduce bulk when carrying it slung as a secondary. The best reason I can think of to go all in on short mags is just that most 12K owners seem to be switching to the long mags, so you could probably get a bunch of the short ones for cheap. For the gun itself, you may have noticed a couple of different setups in the gameplay footage and in the background of our Q&As. I've experimented with a bunch of different options, but I have to say the default 12K configuration isn't bad, particularly with a red dot like this Cobra, and one of my teammates uses the gun just as is. It's a bit long by airsoft standards, but as mentioned in the initial review, it balances well and the short length of pull keeps the weight close to the body. Still, there's room for improvement, and since I didn't demonstrate a barrel swap in the original review, let's do that now. First, remove the sling swivel, then pull the handguard down and out. Loosen the grub screws on the base of the barrel and on the gas block. Punch out the 2 pins on the gas block right to left, taking care not to lose the gas plug indexing pin and spring. That frees the gas block, which slides off the front once the muzzle nut is removed. And now the barrel unscrews, so just reverse the process to install the new barrel, taking care to align that gas plug indexing pin, and then adjust the inner barrel alignment as needed. And there we go, short-barreled shotgun. So hot right now. Most TM Saiga-12Ks you'll see in the wild have roughly this profile, but I'm going to make a few more tweaks. I'll start with an Arsenal RPK style handguard, which just needs the indexing tab at the back cut down a bit, and an Arsenal AK handguard retainer, which fits with a minimal amount of Dremel work and secures with an M3 screw. Next, because the inner barrels go almost all the way to the muzzle, there's risk of getting dirt in when playing outside, so I'll install Flash Hider from WeTech. That's we like the console, not we like we the people, because nothing in this sport is straightforward. Anyways, I swapped the pistol grip for a copy of an Ijamash grip, and the stock for the same skeleton side folder as in the original review, mostly just to eliminate the noise from the loose sling swivel on the TM stock, and I reinstalled the Cobra. This produces a gun that's a little shorter than the original 12K and with better grip on the furniture, though not truly all that different in the end. Minus the Cobra, another one of my teammates is a very similar build, using a US palm grip, although retaining the original sight rib and stock, and a third has a similar setup but opting for Magpul furniture. But personally, because I have obnoxiously dated tastes in firearms, my favorite configuration goes back to the original barrel, swaps back to the original uncomfortable grip but in plum, and with the addition of a heavily modified and refinished Vepr wood handguard, I have roughly the setup from Metro Last Light. There are a lot of options for cosmetic changes, but make no mistake, all the setups shown so far are functionally equivalent. Upgrades for the 12K are almost all about ergonomics and appearance, not shooting performance, which remains great out of the box. As with most Tokyo Marui replicas, replacing internals with unnecessary aluminum equivalents is more likely to make it function worse than function better. Of course, Marui now makes a short-barreled shotgun or SBS variant, loosely based on the Tromix builds of the late 2000s. On the face of it, this seems like the logical choice if you want a short Saiga to start with, but there are a few reasons why we would still strongly suggest opting for the original 12K instead. First, the SBS has shorter inner barrels, which makes it produce significantly lower power. Where the 12K does about 1.1 joules at room temperature with .32s, the SBS does only 0.7 to 0.8 joules. And second, the SBS has a shorter gas tube, AR pistol grip adapter, and a different rear trunnion. These all mean it won't accept normal AK furniture or Saiga 12K aftermarket, so you're more or less locked into the furniture that it comes with. I do think the SBS might be a reasonable choice for indoor CQB fields with BB weight limitations, where being under 1 joule out of the box and consequently able to throw .28s without overhopping is actually pretty convenient. But as we showed in the initial review, with a 12K you can rotate the output valve drum in the magazine to reduce power and consequently hop strength, and if you just want a short Saiga, you can buy a 12K and a short barrel for about the same price as the SBS. So if you're interested in the Saiga, here's a suggestion. Get a 12K and get 3 long mags to go with it. If you don't have suitable load-bearing equipment, that's okay, just stick the spare long mags in your pockets for now. You can bring the short mag as an emergency backup, sell it, or repurpose it as a paperweight doorstop or bookend. Insert a piece of tubing into the spring buffer as shown in our review, or just buy the Federal Concepts rubber buffer, and you're all set for use with propane. This is peak Saiga performance, just feed it quality 32s and send it. After you get a feel for what you like and dislike about the gun, then you can dump money into externals, more mags, or Saiga specific gear. All in all, do we still recommend the Saiga? Absolutely, but like any gun, not without caveats. It's very different from the typical gas blowback rifle experience, and I wouldn't recommend it as a first GBBR or loner gun, but it's a fantastic gun in its own right, and if the fact that it's made of pot metal isn't a deal breaker, the performance, experience, and playability are all great for the price. It is a mostly pot metal gun with merely okay appearance, and there are parts that will break if mistreated, but we feel the performance and novelty more than make up for the mediocre materials. The Saiga 12K straddles the line between gas blowback rifle and shotgun in just the right way, combining the straightforward practicality and ease of use of the gas tri-shots with the recoil and feedback of a GBBR. My biggest concern with it is just that replacement parts remain difficult to find even more than a year after release. While it seems so far that most problems have been caused by user alteration, if something does break, getting a replacement is difficult. We expect this should improve with time as it has on prior Maruis, but right now if that tri-nozzle breaks, you're out of luck. With that caveat aside, this is still without a doubt my current favorite airsoft gun. At this point I'm really just waiting to see what other aftermarket parts come out, and I will happily purchase any new Tokyo Marui shotgun that uses this system. Well, I think that's enough simping for an airsoft manufacturer for one day. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out our merch store linked in the description, and thank you so much for watching.